This is an X-Men movie, and this is X-Men, and I love him very much. I get to take care of him on Fridays, and it's one of the highlights of my week. I also take care of Monster Man on Tuesdays. And when they get older, see, Monster Man is like 13 months, and X-Men is not very good at dates. Maybe 9 months, maybe 8.5, something like that. And when he starts walking and being unstoppable, then I'll take care of both of the boys at once, probably. And that'll be awesome, because they'll get to know each other like brothers. So he's in a good mood right now, so we'll see how long this lasts, because sometimes they're not in such a good mood. It's really hard to do monster movies now because Monster doesn't want to sit still for them. And I really like doing Monster and X-Men movies, partially because I want to say something that it'll mean something to somebody. Of course, you know, it's nice to have a cute baby, show off my babies and their excellent genes and all that. But I really want somebody to get something out of the things I talk about, because all I care about is theology. All I care about is theology, dogma. Of course, dogma is about how to live, right? It's not just about things we believe. It's not just about facts. Now, we're in the midst of the Paschal cycle, right? Or the Paschal period, after Paschal period. And we're coming up on the third Sunday of Pascha. Of course, the first Sunday of Pascha is Pascha. Second Sunday of Pascha is Thomas Sunday. And the third is about the myrrh-bearing women. And the other Sundays include things like the Samaritan woman and the blind man. And these are all about enlightenment. Because the resurrection enlightens. The resurrection is light. But light, in terrestrial light, if you shine a bright light in a dark room, it immediately illuminates the room. But it's not like that for us. See, the light of God illuminates us slowly, not all at once. But when it does enlighten us, and when we're serious about it, it never goes out. The light never is extinguished. Unlike terrestrial light, when you turn off the light, when the sun goes down, it's completely dark. Well, that's not going to happen in Christian life. So the whole sequence of Gospels from St. John is about enlightenment. Now, what's St. John mostly about? St. John is all about Jesus Christ. All about the person Jesus Christ. Being God and being man. And his mission. He read the other Gospels and was aware of them, and he thought, well, they're good. They've got things about the nativity, and they've got things, nice stories. And some of those nice stories I'll repeat, but mostly they haven't said things that I really want people to know, the church to know. So that's why the story of Lazarus and the resurrection is only in John, and the story of the Last Supper discourse is only in John. The Good Shepherd discourse is only in John. About the Eucharist in John chapter 6, ignored by a whole lot of people that say they're Christian, or misunderstood by them, is in John. So a whole lot of things are in John that are only in John. The prologue, the first chapter of John, is introducing Jesus Christ as God before the ages and yet became man. That's only in John. So he's very explicit about Jesus Christ. The first declaration that Jesus Christ is God and man is in John. It was last week when Thomas said, "My Lord and my God." Of course, a Lord is a human, right? Lords and ladies and all that kind of thing. But God is God. And he's saying, "My Lord and my God." We've always understood that to mean a declaration of Jesus being perfectly man and, of course, perfectly God. So let's talk about the myrrh-bearers. And basically, I want to talk about them sort of like off the cuff. Now, I've read this story a bazillion times. And, you know, I am somewhat scripturally literate, being a priest. And it's important to me. And I listen to the scriptures and I read them. And I study them. And I guide my prayer and my life based upon them. But I know that the scriptures are hard for a lot of people. They're just tough. They're just really hard. So I could come up with all kinds of stuff from studying. But that is something that your average person who's reading the Bible is not going to be able to do. So what about if we just kind of talk off the cuff about it? And I think that's important. And probably some of this stuff will make it into my homily this Sunday. Always enlightenment. And always that enlightenment happens as a process. Why do we expect things to happen so fast? They're not going to happen fast. Look at the myrrh-bearing women. The myrrh-bearing women, they got up at deep dawn with the rising of the sun, right? And it was Sunday. And they were going to anoint a dead man. They were going on an errand that couldn't be fulfilled. He wasn't dead. He was already risen by that point. But they didn't know it, but they went to anoint a dead man. He had told them he was going to rise from the dead multiple times, and they didn't believe it. They couldn't believe it. They just weren't capable of believing it. It was too fantastic for them to believe. So they, because of love, went to anoint a dead man. They were also very courageous, because they were going to where it was guarded by 5 Roman soldiers who were bad guys and tough guys. And it's very likely that they would have, certainly they would have turned them away, but perhaps they would have been rough with them or even killed them. It's scary to go up against authority like that. But they didn't care. All they said was, who's going to roll away the stone for us? They couldn't figure out how to do that because it was a big, heavy stone. But they went on an errand that wasn't necessary. That's what we do sometimes. And it's okay. It's okay. God works with us in our ignorance. There are things we don't know. There are sins we're committing right now we don't even know about yet. But when God reveals them to us, we better do something about it. Until he reveals them to us, or until we're capable of understanding, well, what are you going to do? You're just going to keep on going. This is a big message. This is a big message of the scriptures. Enlightenment happens by degrees. And it happens with effort. And it happens with pain. And it happens with missteps. But just make sure that you're honest. You're honest with yourself. And you're honest with others. And you struggle to follow the commandments. And you struggle to be aware of your sins and the problems that you have in your life. By the way, the other Gospels are about process too. What did Thomas do? Thomas said, I'm not going to believe unless I can put my hand in his side and put my fingers into the print of the nails. That's kind of audacious, isn't it? That's not right. And he refused to believe for 8 days. But he stuck around. It's very important. In our society, people don't stick around very much. I do a lot of prison ministry, so a lot of people don't stick around in prison ministry. That is, the people that I minister to. Because they come around and they might want something and they don't get enough of it because they're really asking for the unhappiness in their life or something to go away. Well, that's not going to go away right away. Even when you're baptized. You know, you're still in prison, dude. And you're still estranged from your family. And you still made mistakes that you can't take back. And all the rest. But if you experience God in your heart, you begin to have this joy. But it doesn't happen all at once. So Thomas is going on, I don't believe, I'm not going to believe, but he stuck around. Why? Because of love. Because of love. Uninformed love to some extent, ignorant love to some extent, but still he loved. And he wasn't going to go anywhere. And of course, Christ then appeared to him and showed him his hands and his side. And Thomas declared that he was his Lord and his God. What about the blind man? The blind man was born without eyes. Do you know that? Our services say that. He didn't have eyes. And so the Lord, when he anointed his eyes with mud, and mud was dripping down his face, and he told him to go wash, well, he gave him eyes. He made eyes for him. And so when his parents saw him, of course they recognized him, but now he had eyes, and he hadn't had eyes before. And his parents were afraid of the Jews, so they said, well, you know, our son's old enough, let him speak for himself. And you can see the son gradually come to a knowledge that the one who healed him is God. And you can see his courage. So much courage that he actually is satirical with those. I think of a Spiro Agnew, a famous thing that he said. They were nattering nabobs of negativism. I mean, they were just puffed up shirts, weren't they? Those Pharisees and Sadducees that did not believe. Not all of them now, because we're going to talk about one of them that wasn't. Or 2 of them that weren't in a minute. So he knew that they were just didn't want to believe. And he knew that they were just trying to do kind of a kangaroo court. So he was satirical to them, and they got him thrown out of the synagogue. But they got him thrown into the kingdom, didn't it? The Samaritan woman is another great example. I believe that's next week. She half pagan. But when she spoke to the Lord and the Lord revealed her the truth and then revealed her the truth about her personal life, she had enough courage, enough humility to want to hear more. And so, of course, now we know her as Saint Fontenay, Svetlana, Clara, and she is equal to the apostles because of her conversion to Christianity. So let's talk about this myrrh-bearing women, and we'll see. Maybe I'll have to do this in 2 sections because this little X-Man is becoming tough to handle. Just a minute, let me talk to him for a minute. X-Man, da 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 da. Let's see if that helps any. You know, it's hard for these little guys. But maybe when they're 20, they'll look at this and their girlfriends will think it's funny or something. So, the gospel begins, it's from St. Mark. Joseph, a notable counselor who was from Arimathea and himself was waiting for the kingdom of God, came and having become bold. He wasn't bold before. He was a secret follower of Christ, but he didn't have enough guts to do it in the open. Why? Because, well, he was a member of the ruling council. He was a man of wealth and a man of well-known, and he would have lost that. And he wasn't ready. Maybe you're not ready for something either. But he became bold. There's going to be a time when you're going to have to be bold. And you're going to have to be willing to be bold. In our world right now, certain things that are horribly sinful are accepted as normal. I know somebody that works in an environment where in the front lobby, they're talking about Gay Pride Week all the time on the TV. And they're all into it and corporate sponsorship and all this other garbage. Well, we're not into saying that homosexual conduct or any kind of fornication is anything but detrimental to the soul. A lot of people would say, oh man, you say that kind of stuff, you're phobic, you're this, you're that. Well, I hope you have enough boldness to stand for the truth. I don't mean that you should pass out flyers to your people at work, but you have to be willing to stand for the truth. Some of you are ready to do that and some of you aren't. And for the ones who are ready to do that, you better do it. The ones who aren't ready to do that, well, God will bring you to a place that eventually you're ready to do that. And that's what happened with Joseph and also Nicodemus, who also was a secret disciple. And so they took the body down and they buried him in the sepulcher. They didn't put him in the ground, they put him in a sepulcher that had been hewn out of a rock. And then Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of Joseph, which is really the Theotokos, was beholding where he was laid. So the Sabbath having passed, what does that mean? That means that from Friday through Saturday evening, the Sabbath would be, Friday evening through Saturday evening is the Sabbath, because the day begins with the setting of the sun. And during that time, the Jews could not do any work. They could only travel a certain distance by foot. They couldn't cook food, stuff like that. And so they observed the Sabbath. And of course, when the Sabbath passes, it's still pitch dark night. So they waited until it was getting a little bit light, which would be Sunday morning. And they went out to the sepulcher to anoint the Lord. The reason they went to anoint the Lord is because there wasn't enough time to anoint him before, because he died at the 9th hour, which is 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So there's not enough time between 3 o'clock in the afternoon and sunset to be able to anoint his body. They had to get him in the ground or buried, put in the sepulcher as soon as possible. And they didn't have time to anoint him. So all they did is hastily wrapped him in a linen sheet, and then 2 linen sheets, by the way, one for his head, one for his body. That's why I'm not a shot of Turin guy. But if you are, that's okay. I don't really care. It's a small point. And they were going to anoint him later. And what was the whole point of anointing? The whole point of anointing was to stave off decomposition. Well, decomposition is going to happen anyway. So it's kind of a way of not really dealing with death very well, right? And so they were going to anoint him because of love, because that's what you do to your loved ones, is you anoint them with myrrh and aloes and things to dry the skin and to make it so that there's less growth of bacteria and things like that. And that's what they were going to do. And they wanted somebody, they didn't know how the stone was going to be rolled away. That was another example of their, it wasn't a well planned out operation. But, you know, they did it because of love. Sometimes we do things just because of love. Perhaps maybe we don't get it all right, but God sees our love. Don't we see that with our children, right? Our children bring us a picture and we have to say, oh, that's very beautiful. What is it? It's a whale. Oh, that's the most beautiful whale I ever saw. It looks like scribbles on a piece of paper, right? Or it looks like something. And I've learned to always say, what is it? Oh, I really wanted a flower, right? I really love that whale, etc. So they come to the sepulcher and they see that the stone's already rolled away. And there's a young man sitting on the right in a white robe. Well, that's an angel. And they're amazed. And he says, cease being amazed. You're seeking Jesus the Nazarene, who hath been crucified. He's raised. He's not here. Behold the place where they laid him. But go and say to his disciples and to Peter that he goeth before you into Galilee, and there you shall see him. And they would see him. And they fled from the sepulchre. And it's something strange. And trembling and ecstasy held them fast, and they did not say anything because they were afraid. Now, there are multiple accounts of the myrrh-bearing women. This is one of them. There's multiple times when they went to the sepulcher. This first time that they went, they didn't say anything to anybody. Actually, Mary stayed back. Mary the Theotokos stayed back, and Jesus appeared to her at this point. But the other myrrh-bearing women ran away and didn't tell anybody. Well, that doesn't make any sense. They just told that he's raised from the dead. The sepulcher's empty. What's with that? What's with that is called being a human being. And it was still too fantastic to understand. But they would eventually understand. I think that's a really important lesson. That's a hugely important lesson. I come across things all the time that I don't understand. I just don't get it. Things that are very painful, especially in prison ministry. You just hear terrible things. And people fall away. And, well, they fall away outside of prison ministry too. I don't understand how all that stuff happens. It's just too much to bear. But God knows, and God will help. And that's really the message, I think, of the myrrh-bearers. It's as simple as that. I think the myrrh-bearers' story is your story. It's my story. It's like, keep going. Okay, maybe you're not getting everything right, but keep going. Struggle. Say your prayers even when they feel like they're bouncing off the walls. Forgive your brother even when it doesn't seem to help you any. Pray for your brother even when you're still mad at him. Struggle to be a Christian all the time. Struggle to hold X-Man because he's strong. When he kicks, he's very, very strong. That's the story of the myrrh-bearing women. It's a beautiful story, isn't it? So read the Gospels and follow the Gospels and realize that you're just like the myrrh-bearing women. Well, I hope you're like them in their virtues. And by the way, what's the myrrh represent? It represents our virtues that we bring to God. We're not Christians that say, well, you just have an official belief and it's all good after that. No, you have an official belief and you follow that official belief. You live according to that official belief. And you know how you live according to that belief? Very imperfectly, but getting better. That's the story of the myrrh-bearing women. That's the story of these Gospels and Enlightenment. And that's what's going to be happening to X-Men, even now. God bless you. Christ is risen. Truly he is risen. Christos anesti, alethos anesti. Christo amafufuka. Kweli amafufuka. That's Swahili. Christu numuriuku nema. That is Kikuyu. God bless you. May we all find paradise.